All right, next up we have the masking meter. We are back to the EQ module, which is where we can find the masking meter. Now, what is masking? Let's talk about that first before we go into how to see it or view it or change it or whatever. When we're mixing instrumentation that occupy the same frequency, we can experience masking. This is when the two instruments blend together and you can't really tell what's happening, you can't really tell them apart. They're covering each other up. A prime example is when you're mixing a kick and a bass, and they get turned into this one big blob. You can't really tell what's going on. It can be very difficult to find the correct space for a bass alongside a kick drum. And that's why the masking meter was created. We can visually see if there's any masking going on. Now, first I want to clarify that masking isn't necessarily bad. We don't want all masking to go away. In fact, masking can be a good thing. This meter is simply drawing your attention to potential issues that you may want to correct. All right, with that little disclaimer out of the way, let's turn on masking. Very simple, there it is. Now what we have to do is pick an instance of Neutron that we want to compare to the 808. Now we have two different kicks in this song, so let's pick kick 1 as our second track. Now again, this goes back to how important it is to keep a well-organized set. So right now, the 808 instance is looking at what is being fed into the kick 1 instance. And watch what happens when I hit play. We can see these white vertical bars. And what that's telling us is that at that time, on those frequencies, there is some masking happening. Good or bad, it's happening. We call these collisions. If these collisions start building up and happening over and over again, we have a collision histogram that appears. It's right there. And it might begin to build up. Let's make sure we have a section with both things happening, looping over and over again. There we go. We're not seeing anything. So now let's move to sensitivity. We can turn this up to adjust the masking meter sensitivity. And there we have a histogram. So sensitivity doesn't change processing at all. It simply changes the amount of information that we see. If we aren't seeing masking, let's turn it up and get something on the screen to look at. Now these two instruments, it's not bothering me. I think they're living well together. But there are two instruments I think that are not working well together, and that's the 808 with this bass right here. So we don't have to pull up the second instance of Neutron, but I want to just for demonstration purposes. All right, so there it is. We've got it soloed, and let's select that bass. There we go. And look, it pulled in the EQ information. And if I make an adjustment, it's actually going to make that same adjustment over on this Neutron instance. So there's inter-plugin communication happening. All right, that's all I wanted to show you. Let's see what happens as far as masking. We'll solo the 808 too. And we can hear at these frequencies, they're stepping on each other. Maybe a solution would be to take out some of those frequencies from the bass. Let's see what happens. Let's listen with that node bypassed. We have some muddiness there. They're kind of stepping on each other. So this is exactly what this masking meter was built to do. Tell us about some problem areas so we can then make a decision from there. And I think our decision to attenuate these frequencies in the base instance of neutron was a good decision. Now, along with that, we can inverse link these EQs. So if I make a change on this band, it's going to inversely affect that band. We can also hold and bypass EQs. I'm going to quickly take a listen to what we were doing and say, oh, it's kind of like moloing or soloing. Is that a good decision or a bad decision? Now, one thing we could do is set up a key where whenever this 808 hits, it ducks this frequency. That might be another solution. And we could do that by setting up a key, turning on dynamic mode for band number 2, and setting up that external routing. So that's a possibility as well. The other part of masking has to do with gain. Now think about it. If you have a bass guitar that you cannot hear against a kick, and that bass guitar is 15 dB below the kick drum, well, there's your problem. It's a gain issue, not a frequency issue. So in order to let Neutron know that we've changed the gain, we have to take another step. And that's because Neutron is pre-fader. All this is occurring before it moves on to our fader. So Neutron has no idea that our fader is at negative 6.5 dB. We have to tell it that, because gain applies to masking just like frequencies apply to masking. And we can do that in options, under EQ, and this gain offset. So technically, if we really want to get in here and we want to use the masking meter to its fullest, we have to go into each instance and say, okay, this is negative 6.5 dB, negative 6.5 dB. And we were working with the bass. We have to pull that one up again too, which is right here. Go into equalizer, change this to negative 9 or 8.9. Hit OK. And now Neutron has all the information it needs to give us an accurate masking reading or masking histogram. Notice we didn't change any processing. We're just letting Neutron know the relative volume or gain settings between the two different instances. And it looks like those collisions we had earlier are actually not there because our gain is set. Now let's also talk about Mixtap. And Mixtap is an advanced feature of Neutron 2. And instead of using another instance of Neutron to tap into like we are here with the bass, we could actually use the Mixtap. So I'm going to pull that up on this clap. Got it named something that's useful. And we have some familiar things here. We have a fader. We have width. We can make this wider or mono. If it's a stereo source, we can pan it. We also change the monitoring, so we can sum to mono, change the phase, flip channels. We also have this high pass, a couple different slopes, and the frequency at which that high pass lives. So the Mixtap is useful with the masking meter, but when we get to the visual mixer, that's where this Mixtap really shines. But here, if we select that Mixtap, we won't be able to adjust the EQ section of that Mixtap because it's non-existent. However, we can still view the masking meter. We can see there's a little bit of masking there. We've run out of 808s. Let's get back to an 808 section. Do this right here. And there we can see we have some collisions building up. They might be frequencies that we want to address. or draw our attention to. But that's how you use the mix tab and the masking meter. In the next video, let's take a look at tonal balance control. I'll see you then.